interstellar object ever detected by humanity, left our solar system permanently back in 2018, continues traveling outward on its single, one-way hyperbolic trajectory to this very day, will not even reach the outer boundary of our solar system until around 2038, and will never, under any circumstances permitted by known physics, actually return. The genuine scientific mystery surrounding its unusual acceleration has already been largely resolved through credible, peer-reviewed research pointing toward a natural hydrogen outgassing comet explanation, and the genuinely exciting, legitimate interstellar object news actually happening right now specifically involves 3I Atlas, a real, newly discovered third interstellar visitor that astronomers have been able to study with considerably more time and detail than either of the two objects that came before it. And understanding this real, accurate, genuinely fascinating story, rather than a fabricated, physically impossible return narrative built around a familiar but outdated D-name, honestly gives you access to a considerably more interesting and considerably more scientifically rich version of this entire topic. If you found this fact-checked breakdown of the real Oumuamua story genuinely helpful in separating legitimate space science from recycled false clickbait claims, please take a moment to like this video, share it with anyone in your life who may have seen some of the more misleading versions of this exact story circulating online. Try and subscribe to this channel so you continue receiving accurate, carefully researched breakdowns that separate genuine scientific discovery from manufactured, misleading headlines. Let us know in the comments below whether you had already heard about the genuinely real 3I's Atlas discovery before watching this video, and we will see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay appropriately skeptical of any headline claiming a several-year-old space object has suddenly, physically, impossibly returned until you have actually checked what the real, verifiable science genuinely has to say. And it is genuinely worth expanding further on a few specific angles of this story that deserve deeper, more careful treatment, starting with a closer look at exactly how these kinds of fabricated return claims typically get constructed in the first place, since understanding the actual mechanics behind this kind of misinformation genuinely helps you spot it more quickly. The next time a similar claim crosses your feed, these videos and articles typically follow a remarkably consistent formula. They open with an urgent, time-stamped hook, phrases like 2 minutes ago or breaking, specifically designed to create a false sense of real-time developing news. They then invoke a genuinely credible-sounding authority, NASA, Elon Musk, or a vaguely referenced group of scientists, without ever actually linking to or citing any specific verifiable statement from that named source. They borrow real, accurate background details from the object's genuine original discovery, its 2017 detection date, its unusual shape, its brief period of scientific uncertainty regarding its acceleration, specifically to lend the overall narrative a veneer of legitimate accuracy, and then they pivot into an entirely fabricated central claim, in this specific case, a physically impossible return, before closing with vague, ominous language about the object acting strange or behaving unexpectedly, deliberately, and left undefined, so that the claim itself can never actually be checked or falsified against any specific testable prediction. And recognizing this exact narrative structure, real background details wrapped around a fabricated central claim, genuinely represents one of the most useful, broadly applicable media literacy skills you can develop, since this same basic formula appears across an enormous range of misinformation topics well beyond just space science specifically. And it is genuinely worth taking a considerably deeper look at exactly why 3I Atlas represents such a genuinely significant scientific opportunity, since this real story deserves at least as much detailed attention as we have given to debunking the false one. Astronomers specifically noted that because this object was detected while still approaching the solar system, rather than only being spotted after its closest approach. The way Oumuamua was, researchers have been able to apply a considerably wider range of observational techniques over a considerably longer period of time, including detailed spectroscopic analysis specifically designed to determine the object's actual chemical composition, something that was genuinely difficult to achieve with Oumuamua, given how quickly it receded from view after its own 2017 discovery. An early analysis of 3I Atlas has specifically suggested it behaves in ways more consistent with a fairly typical comet, displaying observable outgassing and a visible coma, unlike Oumuamua's own puzzling, coma-free behavior that originally sparked so much scientific debate. And this specific comparison genuinely matters, since having three distinct interstellar objects to study and compare against one another, Oumuamua's own unusual dry, coma-free behavior, 2I Borisov's more typical wet cometary behavior, and now 3I Atlas's own specifics. Characteristics genuinely allows astronomers to begin building a considerably richer, more statistically meaningful picture of what interstellar objects passing through our solar system are actually typically like, rather than trying to draw broad conclusions from a single isolated data point the way researchers were initially forced to when Oumuamua alone represented humanity's entire sample size of confirmed interstellar visitors. And it is genuinely worth understanding a bit more about the broader significance of finally having multiple interstellar objects available for genuine comparative study, since this represents exactly the kind of scientific progress that tends to receive considerably less popular attention than a dramatic, fabricated headline, but honestly matters far more for genuinely advancing our collective understanding of the universe. Each interstellar object that passes through our solar system originated somewhere else entirely, ejected from a different, distant star system through processes scientists are still working to fully understand, meaning a single one of these objects effectively represents a small physical sample of material from a completely different corner of our galaxy, arriving on our own cosmic doorstep and studying multiple such samples, rather than relying on the analysis of just one single, briefly observed object, genuinely allows researchers to start distinguishing between characteristics that might be common and typical across interstellar objects generally, versus characteristics that might have been genuinely unusual and specific to Oumuamua alone. Precisely the kind of scientific question that a single data point, however fascinating, could never definitively answer on its own, and it is genuinely worth closing this deep exploration with one final point, specifically worth understanding regarding the ongoing, legitimate scientific interest in Oumuamua itself. Even though it has permanently left our solar system and will genuinely never return, astronomers have not simply stopped studying it or thinking about it. Researchers have specifically discussed the concept of a dedicated interstellar object explorer mission, a hypothetical future spacecraft specifically designed and kept ready to launch on short notice the moment a new interstellar object, T like 3i Atlas, is detected, precisely so that humanity would have a genuine opportunity to send a spacecraft to directly study a future interstellar visitor up close, rather than being limited purely to remote telescope observations, the way we have been for all 3 confirmed interstellar objects detected so far. And this kind of forward-looking, genuinely ambitious scientific planning represents exactly the sort of legitimate, exciting future story worth following closely, considerably more worth your continued attention than any fabricated claim about an object that left our solar system permanently back in 2018, somehow reversing course and coming back. And it is genuinely worth adding one further, important layer of context, specifically regarding why the scientific community treats claims like the one in this video's title with such immediate, uniform dismissal, since this consistency itself is genuinely meaningful and worth understanding. When Oumuamua was first discovered back in 2017, its genuinely unusual characteristics prompted real, serious, scientific institutions to actually investigate the possibility that it might not be entirely natural. The Breakthrough Listen initiative, backed by prominent investor Yuri Milner and involving genuinely credentialed astronomers, specifically pointed the Robert C. Byrd Green Bank telescope in West Virginia directly at Oumuamua, scanning across a huge range of radio frequencies, specifically searching for any potential artificial signal. And this genuine, serious scientific investigation found absolutely no evidence of any artificial signal whatsoever, and it is genuinely worth understanding why this specific historical detail matters so much for evaluating today's return claims, because it demonstrates that when Oumuamua's characteristics genuinely warranted serious scientific scrutiny, credible institutions with real telescopes and real funding actually conducted that scrutiny transparently and published their negative results openly for anyone to review, meaning the scientific community has already demonstrated, through real, documented action, that it takes genuinely unusual claims about this object seriously and investigates them properly, which makes the complete, total absence of any comparable investigation into a supposed 2026 return genuinely telling G. If Oumuamua had actually physically returned in any way that violated our fundamental understanding of orbital mechanics, this would represent one of the single most significant astronomical events in human history, prompting immediate, coordinated observation from every major observatory and space agency on the planet, precisely the same kind of serious, transparent scientific response that greeted its original 2017 discovery and its subsequent radio telescope investigation, and the complete absence of any such response from any credible institution anywhere in the world is genuinely itself one of the clearest possible signals that this specific claim is simply false, and it is genuinely worth closing this expanded discussion with a broader final reflection on why stories like this one, correcting a piece of space misinformation, honestly matter beyond simply getting one specific fact right. since public trust in legitimate science reporting depends considerably on people being able to reliably distinguish between genuine, credible scientific communication and fabricated content specifically designed to mimic its style and language without any of its actual underlying substance. And every single time a viewer learns to recognize the specific pattern we walked through in this video: urgent framing, vague authority, borrowed real details wrapped around a fabricated central claim, that viewer becomes measurably better equipped to evaluate the next dramatic space headline they encounter, whether it happens to involve Oumuamua specifically, or any other genuinely fascinating area of ongoing scientific research entirely. And it is genuinely worth adding one truly final practical observation, specifically for anyone who wants to keep following genuine, legitimate interstellar object research going forward, since this represents a genuinely active, rapidly developing area of astronomy, well worth continued attention. Rather than a story that has already concluded, astronomers around the world continue actively analyzing the data collected from 3I Atlas, and additional interstellar objects will almost certainly continue being discovered in the coming years, particularly as instruments like the Vera Rubin Observatory reach their full operational capacity and continue systematically scanning the night sky with unprecedented speed and sensitivity, meaning genuinely new, exciting, and completely real interstellar object stories are very likely to emerge again before too long. And when they do, they will be reported through exactly the kind of transparent, verifiable scientific channels we discussed throughout this video: specific named researchers, specific peer-reviewed publications, and coverage from multiple credible, independent outlets working together, rather than through an unverified, dramatically titled video claiming a several-year-old object has somehow, impossibly, defied the basic laws of orbital mechanics and simply turned around and come back. Oumuamua has suddenly returned and is acting strange. And before we go any further, we need to address this directly and honestly, because that specific claim is not true, and it is genuinely important that you hear that clearly right at the start of this video rather than buried somewhere in the middle. Oumuamua left our solar system permanently back in 2018. It is not coming back. It cannot come back. And no legitimate scientific source, not NASA, not the James Webb Space Telescope team, not any credible astronomer anywhere in the world, has ever claimed otherwise. So, in this video, we are going to walk through exactly why this specific claim is physically impossible, where this particular piece of misinformation actually originated from, what is genuinely, legitimately happening in the world of interstellar object research right now that this false claim is very likely feeding off of, and why understanding the real difference matters considerably more than simply debunking one specific fake headline. SAO, let us start with the basic physics, because understanding exactly why Oumuamua genuinely cannot return is essential, and in D, honestly not even complicated. This object was first detected on October 19th of 2017 by the Pan-STARRS survey telescope in Hawaii, and astronomers immediately recognized something genuinely unusual about its trajectory. It was moving on what is called a hyperbolic orbit, meaning it was traveling considerably faster than the speed required for our sun's gravity to ever capture it into a closed, repeating orbit around our solar system. And this is genuinely the single most important physical fact in this entire story. An object on a hyperbolic trajectory is fundamentally different from a comet or asteroid that belongs to our solar system, since those objects are gravitationally bound to the sun, meaning they follow closed, elliptical orbits and genuinely do return, sometimes predictably, every few years or every few decades. But Oumuamua was never gravitationally bound to our sun at all. It simply swung around the sun once, using our star's gravity to slightly bend its path, and then continued on its way, permanently exiting our solar system, and it has been continuously moving outward, away from us ever since that single 2017 encounter. And it is genuinely worth understanding exactly where Oumuamua actually is right now, and exactly where it is actually heading, since the S-specific detail makes the impossibility of any return genuinely concrete rather than simply abstract. Astronomers have precisely calculated its ongoing trajectory, and current projections specifically show it will not even reach the heliopause, the outer boundary of our sun's protective heliosphere and the beginning of true interstellar space, until approximately the year 2038, meaning Oumuamua is still, even now in 2026, continuing to travel outward through our own solar system's outer reaches, moving further away from Earth with every single passing day, and it will continue moving in exactly that same outward direction, forever, since there is no physical mechanism whatsoever that could cause it to reverse course and head back toward us. This is not a matter of scientific opinion or ongoing debate. It is a straightforward, well-established application of orbital mechanics, the same basic physics that lets engineers precisely calculate spacecraft trajectories decades in advance. And it is genuinely worth being direct about exactly where claims like the one in this video's title actually come from. since understanding this specific pattern genuinely matters for recognizing similar misinformation. In the future, these kinds of headlines have been circulating periodically since at least 2025, showing up specifically on low-quality blog sites and clickbait YouTube channels using titles like "NASA says Oumuamua is back," and "Elon Musk confirms Oumuamua has returned," and it is genuinely worth being completely clear. None of these specific claims are true. NASA has never issued any statement confirming Oumuamua's return, because Oumuamua has never left and away. That would allow for any kind of return in the first place. It simply continues its single, one-way journey outward, exactly as its hyperbolic trajectory always dictated it would from the very first moment astronomers calculated its path back in 2017. And this specific pattern, content deliberately using a genuinely famous, well-known name from several years ago, combined with dramatic, urgency-driven language like "suddenly returned" or "acting strange," represents a well-documented, recurring category of science misinformation, and specifically designed to exploit exactly the kind of curiosity and residual public fascination that Oumuamua's original, genuinely fascinating 2017 discovery generated at the time. And it is genuinely worth understanding why this specific object continues attracting this kind of misleading content years after its actual discovery. Since Oumuamua's original story genuinely was remarkable enough to leave a lasting cultural impression. It was the very first confirmed interstellar object ever detected by humanity. It displayed a genuinely unusual, elongated shape unlike anything previously observed within our own solar system. And it showed a small, measurable, unexplained acceleration that briefly led even some serious scientists, most notably Harvard's Avi Loeb, to seriously consider whether it might represent some kind of artificial object. And this genuinely fascinating, if ultimately explicable, scientific mystery created exactly the kind of lasting public intrigue that misinformation creators continue exploiting years later, precisely because the name Oumuamua still reliably generates curiosity and clicks even now in 2026, despite the object itself having physically left our solar system's inner regions almost immediately after its original discovery. And it is genuinely worth taking a moment to properly explain what actually happened with that original acceleration mystery, since we covered this in considerably more detail in a previous video on this channel. But it deserves at least a clear summary here as well, because understanding the real resolution genuinely helps immunize you against exactly this kind of ongoing misinformation. The leading, supported scientific explanation developed through careful research led by astrochemist Jennifer Bergner at UC Berkeley and astrophysicist Daryl Seligman proposes that Oumuamua was likely a fairly ordinary interstellar comet that had been bombarded by cosmic rays during its long journey through interstellar space, converting a portion of its water ice into hydrogen gas trapped beneath its surface. And when that hydrogen was later released, as the object warmed near our sun, it would have produced exactly the kind of subtle acceleration scientists actually measured, without necessarily creating the same kind of bright, visible dust cloud that a normal comet's outgassing typically produces. And Seligman himself specifically stated that this explanation accounts for every single weird aspect of Oumuamua and represents exactly what you would expect an interstellar comet to be, meaning the genuine, scientific mystery surrounding this object has already been largely credibly resolved through legitimate, peer-reviewed research. It simply was not resolved through any kind of dramatic return. It was resolved through patient scientific analysis of the exact same original 2017 data astronomers had always had access to. And now let us turn to what is genuinely, legitimately happening in the world of interstellar object research right now, because this is honestly the most important, most valuable part of this entire video. Since there is real, exciting, current news in this exact scientific field, it simply does not involve Oumuamua specifically. In July of 2025, astronomers detected a genuinely new interstellar visitor, initially designated A11PL3Z and subsequently officially named 3I Atlas, spotted by a survey telescope in Chile and confirmed by the International Astronomical Union's own Minor Planet Center on the very same day it was first detected. And this represents only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected passing through our solar system in the entirety of recorded human history, following Oumuamua itself in 2017 and a second object called 2I Borisov, confirmed as a genuine, more typical comet back in 2019, and it is genuinely worth understanding why 3I Atlas specifically represents such a significant scientific opportunity, one considerably better than either of the two interstellar objects that came before it, since astronomers Pamela Gay of the Planetary Science Institute specifically noted what makes this discovery so remarkable. Unlike Oumuamua, which W is only detected after it had already made its closest approach to the Sun and was rapidly receding from view, 3I Atlas was discovered considerably earlier, while it was still on its way into the solar system, meaning astronomers have had, and continue to have, considerably more time to actually study this object in real detail, and reporting specifically confirms 3I Atlas remained visible and observable from Earth through the remainder of 2026, providing scientists with a genuinely valuable extended observation window that Oumuamua's own brief, fleeting 2017 appearance simply never allowed for. And it is genuinely worth understanding that this newer object represents exactly the kind of interstellar visitor discovery that connects directly to research. We have covered in previous videos on this channel specifically since the newly operational Vera C. Rubin Observatory, with its remarkable ability to continuously scan the entire visible sky and detect exactly this kind of rare, fast-moving object, is specifically expected to dramatically increase the rate at which future interstellar objects like 3I Atlas get discovered and studied going forward. Meaning, the genuinely exciting story here is not that a several-year-old object has somehow physically and possibly reversed its own trajectory and come back. It is that humanity's ability to detect and study these genuinely rare cosmic visitors is rapidly improving with real new discoveries like 3I Atlas actually happening right now, providing astronomers with considerably richer data than either of the two previous interstellar objects ever allowed for, and it is genuinely worth addressing directly why headlines built around a false Oumuamua return specifically tend to be more effective at generating clicks and views than headlines accurately describing the genuinely exciting 3I Atlas discovery. And the honest answer comes down to a few understandable, if ultimately misleading, factors worth being aware of. Oumuamua is already a familiar, recognizable name that generated enormous global media attention. Back in 2017 and 2018, meaning content creators can rely on genuine, pre-existing audience recognition and curiosity, rather than needing to introduce and explain an entirely new, unfamiliar object and name from scratch. And the word suddenly, combined with claims of an object acting strange, taps directly into exactly the kind of dramatic, mysterious framing that tends to perform well regardless of whether it happens to be accurate. Meaning there's a genuine ongoing incentive for exactly this kind of misleading content to keep circulating, precisely because it is considerably easier and more immediately attention-grabbing to fabricate a dramatic return story using an already familiar name than it is to accurately explain why a genuinely new discovery like 3I Atlas actually matters. And it is genuinely worth taking a moment to walk through the specific, practical steps you can personally use to identify and avoid exactly this kind of space science misinformation going forward, since this represents a genuinely valuable, transferable skill worth building. The first, most important step involves checking whether a dramatic claim is actually attributed to a specific, named, credible source, a specific NASA mission, a specific named researcher, a specific peer-reviewed journal, rather than simply vague references to scientists or NASA confirms without any further verifiable detail, since legitimate scientific findings are always genuinely traceable back to a specific, identifiable source. The second,